that's the thing with Jesus. He's like, well, I mean, why should I care if the guy's rough around the edges, drinks too much, whatever, when I meet him? Because that's not how he's going to stay.
Mm.
Jesus knows that if you follow him, you're going to be changed in the process, right?
Mm.
So I think that's why he makes no demands of anybody. If you want to follow me, you better straighten up, young man, and
Like the
clean
exact
up.
opposite. If you want to straighten up, then follow me.
Yeah.
do what I do.
Yes, that's the best insight we're gonna have all night, I think.
It's why he has to go to the people he goes to, which are like fishermen and tax collectors and
Hmm.
prostitutes, because they're humble enough to follow him. To do like a Pharisee would never would never like these conditions because he's like, well, I kind of want to be judged. Actually, I think I'm pretty
Yeah.
spectacular. So
That's good.
if you're accepting that guy, he smells like fish, and and he cheats
Yeah.
at cards. Like,
See, it's a good thing we kept going because there's another good insight from you. You're loaded with them tonight. Welcome to Biblocus, where the Bible intersects with your life. I'm Timothy.
and I'm Caleb.
And you're listening to Bible Discussions, the forum where we explore biblical topics that are relevant to your life. So today we are continuing our series entitled The Life of Christ. And in this, the 12th episode, we're going to talk about the first disciples. Now, obviously, there's a lot we can learn about Jesus on just about any topic, but how much more so can we learn about how he called people to be his disciples, right? If we're going to follow his model on anything, that should probably be one of them. Now, we've messed this up so badly that we need to review even what discipleship means, I think. Because we talk about...
Well, apparently, since the church is declining all over the Western world,
Yeah. I mean, we call ourselves disciples, followers and all these things. But really, what did it even mean in the first century when Jesus, was calling his disciples? So first we need to understand, what was a rabbi? So Jesus was considered a rabbi. We'll see some of that in our passages we read in this episode. Well, rabbi is a Hebrew word that means my great one, or it commonly just meant a teacher. And it comes from the Hebrew word rab, R-A-B, which means much or many or great. And that's probably in relation to how much knowledge you had.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why you guys call me dad then. You should just call me rabbi.
Rob.
Anyway, but so now that's what a rabbi was. Now a disciple was a learner or an apprentice. And we haven't really had an apprenticeships as much anymore in our modern day as we used to. Back when people learned to trade from somebody else instead of going to college. But in Greek, that was the word mathetes, which comes from the verb manthano, which is to learn. So that's why a mathetes is a learner, or a disciple is a learner. So why am I telling you all that? Because there's a key thing that's missing from just knowing these definitions, is that there's also an implicit contract between a disciple and a rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like if I wanted to become a plumber and learn from a master plumber, right? I would make some kind of a deal with a guy, like if I, follow you around and you teach me how to do plumbing, right? Well, he has to let me go on his jobs with him, right? I mean, or otherwise I'm not going to learn very much about plumbing. If he just comes to me at the end of the day and says, "Here's what I did today. I thought I'd let you know about it,"
Yeah.
Like, those people don't want you coming in their houses, So you'd have to be able to go along with him to learn the trade, right? Well, that's what would happen with a rabbi and a disciple. If I agree to be your disciple, then I have to go everywhere you tell me. I can't go, nah, I want to be your disciple, Caleb, but I'm going to need like Tuesdays and Thursdays off, and of course weekends. And it's like, well, that's like
major holidays.
Yeah. And it's like wanting to be a lifeguard and then asking if you can have the summers off, It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so...
well, the word discipline, right, is coming from the same root as disciple.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like an entire way of life. It's a changing like everything about you, your
Mhm.
whole your whole self discipline.
Yeah, and it's not all on the learner, too. There's a obligation to the rabbi because if he agrees to take you on, it's like that's going to upset his life a lot because I'm going to be tagging along with you
Yeah,
everywhere you go, Caleb. Isn't that going to be great?
basically you just have a kid.
Yeah, so you have to go wherever the rabbi says, but if the rabbi decides to go somewhere, he has to let you go with him.
Mhm.
So it's like here we go. And we're going to see that in some of the passages we look at. Before we get into our reading through our synopsis of the gospels that we're following, I want to jump ahead a little bit and sort of illustrate how we know that this implicit contract existed between a rabbi and a disciple from what happens with Jesus and his disciples later in his ministry. So we're going to start. This is best illustrated in John's gospel. So we're going to start by looking in John 13:33. And Jesus says, "My children, I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come." Now, based on everything we just said, Caleb, would that provoke a crisis amongst his disciples?
Well, it pretty much breaks the whole dynamic of the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first person to object is, of course,
Peter.
yeah, well, the
That's
first
all
person.
he always is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in verses 36 through 38, Simon Peter asked him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus replied, "Where I am going, you cannot follow now, but you will follow later." And Peter asked, "Lord, why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." Then Jesus answered, "Will you really lay down your life for me? Very truly, I tell you, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." Now, the tension here is all about the rabbi disciple relationship, right? Because Jesus is like, "You can't go where I'm going." And Peter's like, "Oh, I paid the price of admission. Like, I get to go."
It's basically your boss walking in saying, "I know tomorrow's payday, but we're not paying you. We'll pay you
Yeah.
eventually."
Yeah, so Peter is kind of miffed, like I should get to go. I have total access. I got Disney Plus.
This is the backstage
Yeah.
pass. Yeah.
Um, and so he says, in fact, not only that, I've signed up to die for you. And so then Jesus is like, okay, well, let's turn this around for a second, because guess what's going to happen in the next 24 hours? When I said that you couldn't follow me right now, what I meant was you're not capable of following
Hmm.
me. You're not going to.
Yeah.
And I was just being nice about it. But if you really want to know, before morning comes, you're going to disown even knowing me 3 times.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, I guess you were being nice.
Mm.
And Peter doesn't know yet, but he's going to see that, right? So, so Jesus, he knew that no one was going to want to follow him where he was going that day.
Yeah. And this, by the way, it's worth pointing out, this is kind of such an existential crisis for them. It's the largest part, basically, of the Gospel of John. This dialogue between
Yeah.
Jesus and his disciples before his crucifixion, his arrest and crucifixion. Like you have the early part of John, which kind of covers like the basics of his ministry, and then basically the entire teens is this conversation. Because they're just like breaking down over it. And he
Hmm.
has all this information that he gives them, and a prayer that he prays for him, and
Yeah.
the whole night before the like John's gospel. It is the kind of the most irregular one, right? The other ones are called the synoptic gospels, but
Hmm.
just the whole stretch of John is dealing with this whole situation that they could not wrap their minds around.
Yeah. So, so Jesus, I think he realizes, man, I just laid some heavy lumber on Peter. So he tries to make things a little easier. So in uh, John 14 verses 1 through 4, it says,
Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going.
so. Now he's telling them, you know where I'm going. And so now Thomas objects,
Yeah.
he gets a bad rap. Thomas gets a bad rap as being the doubter,
He only gets brought up like
but
twice, and
yeah.
it's yeah.
But he actually, if he hadn't asked him this, then we wouldn't have had one of the most amazing sentences in the Bible
Mhm.
that are from Jesus' mouth. But so Thomas in John 14:5-7, it says,
Thomas said to him, "Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way?" Jesus answered, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him." I mean, I honestly, we have the benefit of hindsight, reading the whole gospel and kind of already knowing what's going on. I can't imagine any of us being any less, frustrated. Like,
yeah.
first of all, it's just kind of confusing what he's saying, and then we ask for clarification, and he gives you an answer like that. It's like, okay, I have 17 more questions, and also the first one still. Like,
Well, I think what's cool about it though is, Thomas is really calling him down too, because like Peter was like, "Well, you won't give me access," and Thomas is saying, "You're not giving me knowledge. Like you
mm,
didn't prepare me well enough." But Jesus knows that he has prepared them well enough, and he's saying, "Because I've shown you the Father, and that's enough for anybody."
yeah, I think it's kind of like you can't. It's he knows he can't really prepare them per se. They just kind of have to go through it. It's like
Hmm.
it's a major milestone in your life, like becoming a parent. Like, oh, how do I know when I'm ready? It's like you won't know that you weren't ready until you're already in it, and, and it's too late to be ready. It's like something that big is coming, and he just kind of has to lead them through it.
Yeah.
Which the only way he can do that is basically giving them this relationship that they have, and based on trust.
So keep all these expectations in mind as we read this. That somebody who's looking to be a disciple is looking for access to somebody who can teach them about the law, like a
Hmm.
rabbi. If they're looking for a rabbi, they're looking for somebody who can teach them about the law. And somebody who's looking for students is a rabbi who wants some students to wax his car. I mean to teach. It's kind of like the Karate Kid, where
Yeah,
he's like waxing the car and he's painting the fence, and then it turns out he's teaching them all these things.
yeah.
But a rabbi is somebody who is looking for students to share his knowledge. And I mean, all of us and we'll see that in the stories today. All of us, when we gain a knowledge of God, we want to share it with other people.
Hmm.
So that's what they're looking for here, both from both sides. You can kind of see the obligations that they're all looking for. So now we're going to go in and we're going to see um, what happens in John chapter 1. And John chapter 1, I think, is one of the greatest chapters in the Bible. It's on the super short list, like with Romans 8 and
Hmm.
you know, uh,
Psalm 23.
yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. Or there Psalm 32. There's just some really great chapters in the Bible, and John 1 is one of them because of what it teaches us about following Jesus. So in John 1:35-39, it says, "The next day John was there again with two of his disciples. When he saw Jesus passing by, he said, 'Look, the Lamb of God.' When the two disciples heard him say this, they followed Jesus. Turning around, Jesus saw them following and asked, 'What do you want?' They said, 'Rabbi,' which means teacher, 'where are you staying?' 'Come,' he replied, 'and you will see.' So they went and saw where he was staying, and they spent that day with him. It was about 4 in the afternoon."
Another one of those, that last sentence there, like we keep noting this in John 1, right? How grounded he makes some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
Like, so there was a man called John, right?
Hmm.
All of this happened in
Bethany.
Bethany, yeah.
Hmm.
It was 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, so specific, I think just to keep it grounded, because
Yeah.
he's like, it almost gives you whiplash. It's like this mystical stuff about the word being God and being made flesh, and then,
Or I'll show you the Father, like we just did.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And now it's like, and I'll show you a guy named John
And
who
all of
eats
this happened
locusts.
at 4 o'clock in Bethany
Yeah.
with a guy named John.
Who ate locusts and wore a belt. So,
And hopefully something else.
all right. there's some things we can learn from this passage. And, I think the very first thing that we have to learn is that it's our job to point people to Jesus, right?
Like John.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what John did. And like, what else did John do? Nothing, right? He just
Yeah.
pointed people to Jesus, right?
He specifically said he had to diminish himself
Yeah.
so that Christ could increase.
Yeah, but
And that's like one of the big temptations, I think, of like people who get caught up with like the numbers. Like, oh, how many people attend my church? How many people did we baptize? And it's like, well, what are you baptizing them into? Who are you pointing them towards? Are you pointing them towards the preacher to make sure they attend every Sunday and we get
Yeah.
those numbers up? Or, yeah.
Oh, well, notice that John doesn't give them a list of, wait, before you go follow Jesus, here's some things you need to know about him and how you need to behave, right? He just is like, yeah, fine, go follow him. You'll be way better off than following me, right? It's like that thing about I'm not worthy to untie his sandal, right? Like he's like, I'm going to let Jesus handle these guys. Like, I'm not even going to begin to try to say how that person needs to be changed by Jesus. I'll let Jesus decide that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just points him in that direction and then gives him over to Jesus because I think Jesus can handle it. What do you think?
Yeah. And Jesus' question is really interesting too. Like, what do you want? Which I think is the right way to read it. No, what do you want?
Yeah, why are you following
what do
me?
you want?
Yeah, I mean, just imagine that opportunity. Like, how would you answer? If Jesus asked you, he really is interested in knowing what you want.
It's like the question
And-
we started the channel with, right? When we did Genesis 1. It's like, what if God plopped you down and asked you, so what should I make?
Yeah, right.
It's like, yeah.
Can you just pick for me? Yeah, I know it'll be
Which
better.
is kind of their answer. They just sort of defer back to him. Like, well, where are you staying? Like, we want to follow you.
Yeah, I think they're sort of asking him, is it okay if we follow where you're staying? Can we hang out with you? He's kind of like, but it's pretty cool. It's not the only place, and we'll talk about more later, some other cases where people are asked by Jesus, what do you want me to do for you? Or,
I don't know why I always do this. We should have included Isaiah here because it's like when Isaiah has one of his visions of heaven and God is saying like, who will we send? Who will go to them? And he's like, well, before that he says, I'm an unclean man with unclean lips and a nation of unclean lips, and then the angel purifies his mouth, and it's like he's willing to follow. He just knows he's not worthy. But like you're saying, John doesn't make demands. Jesus doesn't make demands. He just says, well, like kind of the important thing is that you came to me. So
right. Well, then Caleb just jumped down to our third point of things we can learn from this passage is Jesus makes no demands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible if you think about it. Why doesn't he? Like, why? He just says, follow me or come and see.
It's interesting, there's like, famous examples of like certain monasteries or things where if somebody tries to join, they reject them for like 10 years to prove that they really want it. It's like not actually a very Christ-like practice if you think about it,
Oh, yeah.
And
see if they're worthy.
Yeah, it's like prove that you want to be here, and that's not his kind of response. It's not putting them through a litmus test or saying, well, first fix this, this, and this.
Well, it's like if you were a pottery maker and you threw a lump of clay down on your wheel and looked at it and go, oh, that doesn't look very much like a vase. I better get some different clay. It's like, no, it's clay. Like you're going to make it into a vase, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it looks like when you plop it down on there. And it's what it's going to look like when you're done. And I think that's the thing with Jesus. He's like, well, I mean, why should I care if the guy's rough around the edges, drinks too much, whatever, when I meet him? Because that's not how he's going to stay.
Mm.
Jesus knows that if you follow him, you're going to be changed in the process, right?
Mm.
So I think that's why he makes no demands of anybody. If you want to follow me, you better straighten up, young man, and
like the exact opposite. If you want to straighten up, then follow me.
Yeah.
do what I do.
Yes, that's the best insight we're gonna have all night, I think.
All right.
Yeah,
wrap up early.
Shutting it off, everybody. So So why does Jesus have this simplistic approach to discipleship? Like, what's wrong with him? No, no. It's like
It's-
why is it so simplistic? Well, we learned right from John 14 just a minute ago that he just wants to show us the Father.
mhm.
And Thomas is like, could I have a roadmap? And Jesus is like, what? I'm not here to teach you how to follow a roadmap. I'm here to show you the Father.
Mhm.
You know?
Like the one time that someone's it's God incarnate and
Hmm.
and they're like, all right, but give us like you know more
A list.
nerdy, boring details,
Yeah.
please.
Give me a
He's like,
list of things to do.
I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they can get that, like if they can get anybody who you point to Jesus, if they can say, "Oh, I'm getting an image of what humanity is supposed to be like. I'm getting an image of what the Father is like and what he wanted his people to be like. That's what he wants them to be like." Then that person's going to be fine, right?
Mhm.
They're going to be transformed by Christ. And I think the first disciples learned that immediately.
Mhm.
Like, I think they were so appreciative of Jesus's approach. And it's sort of like, we'll see later with the woman at the well too.
Well, it's
There's
kind
like a
of
there's like a joy that comes from being treated the way he treats people.
yeah. Well, he it's why he has to go to the people he goes to, which are like fishermen and tax collectors and
Hmm.
prostitutes, because they're humble enough to follow him to do like a Pharisee would never would never like these conditions because he's like, well, I kind of want to be judged. Actually, I think I'm pretty
Yeah,
spectacular. So
that's good.
if you're accepting that guy, he smells like fish, and and he
Yeah.
cheats at cards. Like,
See, it's a good thing we kept going because there's another good insight from you. You're loaded with them tonight. So, um, yeah, but why? The reason I say that the first disciples got it right away is look what happens next. Because the very next thing that happens in John 1:40 through 42 is Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard what John had said and who had followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was find his brother Simon and tell him, "We have found the Messiah, that is the Christ." And he brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cephas," which when translated is Peter. So Andrew's like, "Oh, wait, I know. I saw John point me to Jesus. I went to Jesus. He told me to follow him. I really like it. I'm going to go and point somebody else to Jesus and have them follow him, and they're going to like it.
mhm,
And so it's like he's already figured out the model, right? He's already following John's model and Christ's model.
yeah, and as we'll see with Peter, right? His transformation, like we said, will begin immediately.
And Peter's transformation is so dramatic, like in the Bible, that Andrew is introduced, right in verse 40,
Hmm.
it says Andrew, Simon Peter's brother.
And then two,
Simon Peter hasn't even been introduced
yeah, yeah,
yet, so
and
it's
then 2 verses later, he changes his name, like a
yeah,
complete transformation here.
yeah. But he's introduced to Simon Peter's brother before Simon Peter is even introduced.
Yeah,
So it's like it's understood that the people who got this gospel were already going to know who Peter was because he was, such an important figure in
hmm
the early church. When Peter does follow Jesus though, his transformation is almost instantaneous. Whereas Andrew was a quick study who immediately picked up on the model.
hmm
Peter begins to be transformed immediately because Jesus gives him a brand new name.
hmm
So that's pretty cool.
and that's like another one of the temptations. When it comes to following Jesus, is to not change anything, to not let yourself be changed. Like, well, he picked me, so he must be pretty happy with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to change anything.
Yeah. Well, and Jesus is smart enough. I mean, we've seen, like, with what we just described his model, he knows people will be changed when they interact with him.
Hmm.
So he doesn't even like have to worry about like what's wrong with them. Like if there is something wrong with them, he doesn't have to say, "Well, you're too much of a smart aleck, or you drink too much, or whatever." He just knows that you're going to become more like me as you spend time with me. So those things will go away. It's sort of like our Numbers episodes or something like that, where the things that are incompatible with God, they're going to burn off when you're in the presence of God, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably like it's going to take work, you know.
Yeah.
It's not just magical. Like,
Hmm.
if you like you were saying, you drink too much,
Yeah, but
you
it's
just
like
your addiction just kind of disappears out of nowhere.
where God's going to change what your desires are,
Yeah,
and you're going to
but
want
that's
to get rid
by
of those things.
that's like by because you're following him because you're
Hmm.
focused on him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and so here's what we need to learn from this is that we need to bring those we love to Jesus and then get out of the way.
Yeah.
Let them be changed by Jesus, not into what we want them to be.
He's the rabbi, right? Like not
Yeah.
us.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jesus will do that. But we have to trust him, right, to make the transformation, the same transformation he's probably already made in your life. And you're so anxious for somebody you love to also experience, but you have to let them experience that through their interaction with Christ, not what you want them to become or what you want your interaction with them to be.
Hmm. Yeah. And then so we've kind of talked about some of the ways that this process would fail, which is always our fault,
That's
not
true.
God's fault.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's funny because sometimes there's just a person who just their heart is moved by God because he works in ways we don't understand, right? And they just become a Christian. Like, I don't know, somebody like C.S. Lewis who,
Mm.
tried to study their way out of Christianity and studied their way into it by accident,
Well, and he had friends who
Yeah.
brought him into it. He had this big, famous talk with Tolkien and another one of the Inklings. Like they just went
Hmm.
on a walk in the Oxford Gardens or something like that until like 2 in the morning. And he says that when he left for that walk, he was an agnostic, and when he came back, he was a Christian.
Yeah. He moves people's hearts in ways you don't understand or can predict. And sometimes he just does it himself. But
Mhm.
most of the time it's through another person who someone is impressed by or who someone they care about who points them to Christ. But sometimes God goes and gets somebody himself, like he does with Paul or somebody else.
Yeah,
And so,
pretty dramatically in that case. Yeah.
yeah, so Jesus does that also here in John chapter 1 in verse 33. I'm sorry, in John chapter 1, verse 43.
The next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me."
So,
End of story.
yeah. So even Jesus doesn't try to mess up his model, right? It's just like, oh, I want to tell him.
There's no information given about him, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing about the fisherman part or tax collector. It's just like
Yeah.
a guy named Philip. That's good enough.
I've always liked that name. Sounds like Philadelphia Phillies
Oh boy.
back here on my hat. But anyway, um, yeah, no other demands, just follow me. So that might explain what happens
Again, what's the demand placed on Philip here?
just to
Like,
follow.
quit
Right.
gambling and
Mhm.
marry your girlfriend. Stop just sleeping with her, and then follow me. Or nope, just follow me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
obviously, like he wasn't perfect. He's a guy named Philip. Come on. So, that's the demand, and because then, like you were saying, everything else will come with time
Yeah.
if he's fixated on Jesus.
And because he doesn't place any demands on Philip, look what happens next. In John 1:44 through 46, it says, Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nazareth? Can anything good come from there? Nathanael asked. Come and see, said Philip. It's like, instead of Philip going, oh, this is going bad, he's just like, that doesn't matter if he hates the town he's from. He's still going to love this guy.
Yeah.
So he's very eager to point him to Jesus. And then, Nathaniel is just like, oh, what a
Nathaniel
loser.
seems like
That guy must be a total loser if he's
seems
from
like they
Nazareth.
should give up on Nathaniel,
Yeah.
but they don't.
Because Philip knows there's no litmus test, right? And he's right.
Yeah.
because Jesus actually sees this as a plus in Nathaniel, right?
Hmm.
So in John 1:47 through 51, it says,
When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." Then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus said, "You believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than that." He then added, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man."
so Jesus says that Nathaniel's an honest person. Why does he say that? It's because when he says I saw you under the fig tree, he also means and I heard what you said.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not lost on Philip. All of a sudden he's like, "Ruh-roh." He knows I said he was a loser, right? And
Nathaniel, you mean?
I'm sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
Nathaniel. Yeah, yeah. And so,
Well, it's kind of like it sort of makes me think of what's the sort of perception that a lot of people in America have of Christians now. Like they're basically
mhm,
all from the southeast. They probably don't even wear shoes. Bunch of country bumpkins. They're just hanging on to their faith because they're uneducated and backwards.
mhm.
It's like, yeah, you sound like a smart guy. We could use someone like you.
Well, and so he he knows that he hates people from Nazareth,
Yeah.
and he's still, but he's like,
He's like, yeah, I'm from there. That's probably you're not exactly wrong.
but he's saying though that I like an honest person,
Hmm.
and so you're the type of person I can work with because you're honest.
Probably one of
And
like the best characters in The Chosen is Nathaniel.
yeah,
Just like blurts out whatever he's thinking. And everybody's like, "What are you do? What are you saying?" Like, what? That's the way it is.
well, and Jesus knows that if he's got an honest person to work with, that the transformation's going to come.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I think he must also know that Nathaniel is as honest with himself and with his own judgment of himself, right,
yeah.
as he is with people from Nazareth.
Well, look how fast the transformation starts with Nathaniel, because as soon as Jesus tells him he saw him under the tree and knows what he said about him, he's like, "You're the Son of God," you know. and uh, and so Jesus is like, "Wait, you believe that based on this?" He's like, "Well, I mean, you're not going to believe what I'm going to show you. You know how he says, 'I'm going to show you the Father.'"
Uh huh.
We
Yeah.
didn't, we
Yeah.
didn't even read far. In Philip has a big collapse, right after the section we were reading in John 14, where he says, "Well, show us the Father, and that'll be enough." And he's like, "You
Hmm.
don't even know me? Like you've known
Yeah.
me all this time?" But Nathaniel saw it right away.
Yeah.
But then Jesus is like, "Oh, you're gonna see a lot more than that."
Yeah.
And so it's going to be great, like Jesus is predicting there.
Nathaniel seems easily influenced. It's like
A little bit.
one of those guys who agrees with the last thing that was said.
Well, I of course I just said this a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
but I am from New Jersey, so that's the connection I have with Jesus. He's from Nazareth. He gets stuck with that rap, oh, it's the Nazareth kid, and I get the, you're the Jersey kid. So it is a real thing. I
Yeah,
think.
maybe one day, like they have, Augustine of Hippo or Clement of Alexandria. One day they'll quote Timothy of New Jersey.
Oh yeah, that'll be fantastic. Well, I think that would be cool because it's one of the neat things about incarnation is Jesus was incarnated in Nazareth, right? As the
Hmm.
as the son of God, as this rabbi, and he owned it. So isn't it weird? Like our definition of who God is Jesus. Like you said, I'm showing you the Father. And so our picture of who God is Jesus of Nazareth.
Hmm.
So Nazareth, the little scruffy town in Israel, is now part of the definition of who God is.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. And so yeah, that would be neat. I think we should own. I need to own New Jersey. I need to own Knoxville. We need to be willing to be the people for the Christians from Knoxville, the Christians from New Jersey, whatever. We need to own the place we're from because that's what Jesus did. And you're owning all those people too when you do that.
Hmm. one of the things that all these guys had in common is that they're looking for a teacher or a rabbi who could explain the kingdom of God, explain God's laws,
Right.
explain God to them.
Yeah, they're looking for, the best rational, explanation from the best rabbi,
Mhm.
right? And so,
They're not
but
getting it from the Pharisees.
well, but that's not what they got from Jesus either, was it? From Jesus, they got like shown,
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's true.
boom,
Not
here's the
not like a
Messiah.
rational. Yeah,
Here's
I mean,
God. Here's the Son of God. Here's the Anointed One of God. Here's the King of Israel, right in front of them.
mhm.
And it was like, whoa, this is better than an explanation.
Yeah, yeah. It's a promise to show them God and His kingdom. I mean, it's the same thing that like you go back to the Old Testament, and it's like He promises Abraham or Abram at the time an heir and a nation to come from him, and
hmm
he's like, okay, like it's like, hey, Abram, leave everything you've ever known and just follow me into the wilderness. And
Yeah.
kind of looks around like, yeah, might as well. It's
Well, we did see places where people asked God to show himself to them.
like Moses, yeah,
Yeah. And
or
Elijah.
Elijah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but God's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But Jesus is like, it's happening.
Interesting that those are the two guys who are on the Mount of Transfiguration too.
hmm
They're the ones that asked to be shown God.
And they're glowing
Yeah.
like him.
Pastor
Yeah.
Wolfmueller, who we've had on to interview, has a theory that it's all one. I think it's him that it's all actually it like transcends time. That when Moses is there on the Mount of Transfiguration, it's also for him the same time that he's on the mountain speaking face to face with God, taking down the law.
Mm.
And Elijah is when he's hearing the whisper. That it's like it sort of transcends time and space. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was kind of a cool way to picture it.
Well, so Jesus promised to show them the kingdom of God, his kingdom, and to show them God. And so then you have this other story about Jesus calling his disciples that comes from Luke's account, and it exemplifies that, right? Like you
Hmm.
see this, all of a sudden God appears here, because in Luke 5, 1 through 11, it says, one day as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge two boats left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch. Simon answered, Master, we have worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets. When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, Go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man. For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, Don't be afraid. From now on, you will fish for people. So they pulled their boats up on shore, left everything, and followed him.
Yeah, that reminds me even more of the Isaiah passage, right? Away from me, I'm a sinful man.
Yeah,
Like, woe is me, I'm a man of sinful lips.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they were looking for a rabbi that would teach them and show them all things, right?
And he gave him all the fish.
Yeah, and Jesus was showing them things only God could do.
Hmm.
So they were like, And so even Peter, though, yeah, he tells him to stay away from him. And Jesus still tells him, no,
Yeah,
follow me,
yeah.
right? And so he's willing to work with anyone. And no wonder they left everything to follow him when he could perform miraculous signs like this. So,
Yeah, and then that line, right? That you will fish for people from now on,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's amazing, because here they are, fishermen with boats, and Jesus is starting a ministry that's going to span oceans and the first thing they do is get rid of the boats.
Abandon the boats. Yeah.
Hey, how are we going to reach the whole
Well,
world
they were
this
in a
way?
landlocked lake, so logistically, it was never going to work.
So now, Caleb, we're talking about being fishers of men, and you're the official Biblocus historian.
hmm
And you found a quote from Augustine from the City of God, Book 20, Chapter 30. I mean, this guy was a prolific writer, wasn't he? That's like,
One of the most ever. Yeah,
yeah,
probably.
yeah. So this is this here's this quote from that.
Yeah, and to put it in context, like
Mhm.
we were talking about before this, you got to think about the time through which Augustine lived. He saw, so he was born in 350 or 354, right? And about 30 years before that would have been the Nicene Council, and you had Emperor Constantine who made Christianity legal in the Roman Empire instead of being largely unacceptable in the official circles and often directly persecuted. And then during Augustine's time in 380, the Emperor Theodosius actually makes it the official religion.
Mhm.
So I mean, but then also later in his life, you have the first sacking of Rome and this like destruction of the Roman Empire and supposedly, in some people's eyes, Christendom. And he writes the book, The City of God, in response to all that to help people
Mm.
work out what's going on, how to deal with it. And so this is what Augustine says. He says, speaking of Jesus, he was sent unto the nations in the persons of his apostles. And thus the saying of the psalm was fulfilled, Thou wilt deliver me from the contradictions of the people. Thou wilt set me as the head of the nations. So that those who had spoiled the Israelites, and whom the Israelites had served when they were subdued by them, were not themselves to be spoiled in the same fashion, so that like Israel doesn't go and physically conquer them, right? Like the Romans and Babylonians and everyone who had conquered them. They're not spoiled in the same fashion, but were in their own persons to become the spoil of the Israelites. For this had been promised to the apostles when the Lord said, I will make you fishers of men. And to one of them he says, From henceforth thou shalt catch men. They were then to become a spoil, but in a good sense, as those who are snatched from that strong one when he is bound by a stronger. If that last part sounds familiar, it's because when we did the episode on the temptation of Christ, we read that verse where the Pharisees accused Jesus of casting out demons by the power of the demons, and he says, "Well, no one can take a strong man's goods unless a stronger man first binds him up and then plunders his house,"
Mm.
saying that he's stronger than the devil, and that's what Augustine is referencing at the end there.
Yeah, this is also a good time to point out that Jesus' model was working. Everybody, okay, like
Yeah,
the find a few people and invest deeply in them, and let them follow you in life. You know, let
and a
them
couple hundred years later,
give them
you know,
access. Right.
yeah, and a couple hundred years later, this empire which put Jesus to death and often persecuted his disciples, then just converts en masse to Christianity.
Hmm. Yeah, we need to be willing to let people have access to us. We need to give them our phone numbers. We need to let them come to the house for dinner. You know, we need to have them over all the time, because if you aren't giving people access, there's never going to be any transformation. That's the whole point of what we're looking at Jesus' method of calling disciples, is to see that it involves close relationships.
Yeah, and this also kind of gets to, you mentioned the spiral earlier, right? Like the upward spiral
Yeah.
and downward spiral. That kind of that's another thing that goes back to our creation episode, Genesis 1,
Hmm.
where the whole pattern of God is like he starts small, but things just spiral upwards.
Yeah, get better and
He
better.
starts from nothing with creation, and next thing
Hmm.
you know, we have everything. And he
Right.
starts with a bunch of smelly fishermen, and then has the whole world converting.
Right.
And
Well, remember what the world was doing before that, though. Rome had conquered, most of the known world
mhm.
at that time, and everything was spiraling
Well, and
down
all you had this
the
series
drain.
of conquests. Like you
Hmm.
had, I always forget which of the minor prophets that was, that talks about the nations devouring each other till there's nothing
Hmm.
left,
Yeah.
and that's the downward spiral. And then Christ reverses that, where they're being devoured not in like military conquest, but by the word.
Yeah. Drink and drink until they are no more.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that passage. Yeah. I'll put it on the screen. All right, so we need to follow Jesus so he can show us how to fish for men, right? So we need to we need to stay close to him so we learn to do things the same way he does, just like all of these guys did here in John 1
Mm-hmm.
and uh and also in Luke. And so just like Nathaniel, he's going to show us way more than that though. He's
Mm-hmm.
going to show us way more than just how to fish for men. He's going to show us the Father.
Yeah. And the words of life takeaway are from John 8:12. Kind of sounds familiar to what he said earlier in response to whose question was it? Thomas.
Mhm.
He's like, I am the way and the truth and the life. And in John 8:12, he says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, because following Christ is like the only source of light in this dark world,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's easy to spot because he's way different than the darkness of this world. And when you walk with him, you live a life that's illuminated, right? Instead of stubbing your toe on every piece of furniture in the room, and turn on the light. Follow Christ the light, and your life will be a lot better.
And you don't have to bring anything with you. You don't have to meet a bunch of demands on a checklist first.
Hmm. Yeah, you just follow the light, and obviously your life's going to get better if it's in the illumination of Christ's wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
right, and leadership. And so eventually you're going to become more like him, and that transformation is all part of the process of following him, and that's how he designed it for us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for ways to figure this out, well, look for other people who are already following him.
Yeah. I mean, look, like John the Baptist, where he just says, hey, look, it's the Lamb of God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you know another Christian, then ask them if you can go to church with them. And
Yeah. And the way to, because obviously, like, there's so many people who are claiming or trying to be Christians, so many churches. And the way to sort of discern, right? If you're like, well, is this a good church to be at? Is if they're pointing you to themselves, right?
yeah.
To their program. Not that they don't have good programs, but if the focus is, go to our thing, our preacher, it's just all about us, or if they're just pointing you constantly to Christ.
Yeah. No, if the main things they want to talk to you about is how they have a family and life center with an indoor track so you can keep on top of your health and stuff, then I mean that's a nice feature, but that's not the main feature they should be trying to express to you. It should be more like, we have Bible studies, we have sermons, we try to point people to Christ all the time through the Word.
Mhm.
Those should be the main. We have home Bible studies where you can develop close relationships with other people and invest in other people and have other people invest in you. Like those are the things that you want to hear them talking about.
Mhm.
And probably if there's somebody who's a Christian that's attractive to you in the sense, that you think that they would be a good model of Christ, then that's probably going to be a good person to ask, hey, where do you go to church? You mind
Mhm.
if I come with you this week? So, and if they don't point you to Christ, then, find somebody else or just start reading your Bible and God's going to, find you.
Mhm.
So, all right. Well, he's Caleb and I'm Timothy. Thank you for listening to Bible Discussions on Biblocus, where the Bible intersects with your life. Please consider subscribing to our channel to help support our efforts. All scripture quotations, unless otherwise indicated, are taken from the Holy Bible, New International Version, NIV, copyright by Biblica Inc., used by permission of Zondervan, all rights reserved. Biblocus is a registered trademark. This program is copyright 2026 by Timothy Klingerman. God bless all of you.